Shah. Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
And when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of God should come, he answered them and said, The kingdom of God cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, Lo here, or Lo there, or behold, the kingdom of God is within you.
The tabernacle of the Most High, the kingdom, tabernacle of the Most High is with men. Because the tabernacle of the Most High, that's like the temple of the Most High. That's the kingdom, right? It's with men, so that means we got the knowledge. So we already have the tabernacle of the Most High. We already got the kingdom. We already have it. Spiritually, we have it. But the physical part is going to come. The physical manifestation of it is going to come soon.
Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord.
The kingdom of the Most High is within you. So you brothers, the ones of y'all, you sincere brothers, y'all heard what the scripture said, the kingdom of the Most High is within you. So we already got the kingdom. So the kingdom, it was given to us back in Matthew 25 when Yahweh Shai came. The knowledge, this truth. That's why this knowledge is nothing to play with. Here it is, the Lord then blessed you with the kingdom already. It's within you.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
To the glory of our golden age, may it shine forever.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the whole elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Kakwadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shah. All right, and I want to get into dealing with this lesson. All right, and dealing with the generation of the wilderness, and speaking of our people, because you go back to the wilderness, you had our people that, they loved Egypt, okay? They loved, all right, the gods of Egypt, okay? As you had the incidents of the golden calf, okay? And that same generation, did not get to see the promised land, okay? Because of their disbelief, their unbelief, their rebellion, okay? And their love for, the present world, their present time. See, they didn't have a vision towards the promises. Okay, their mindset, was what was popping at the time, and what was popping at the time was Egypt. Okay, in this same generation, in every captivity, they would choose the way of the heathen. All right, and that same generation is back. Okay, and they love the way of the heathen above all the promises of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, and the water. Yahweh Bashem Al Shah for pulling us out of their darkness, because we was in their darkness. We thought like them. We moved like them. You see? But the Lord saw it fit, to remove us from their darkness, man. Because we was in the wilderness, with them. Okay? Not knowing who we are. Not knowing, our power, his name, the name of his son. Not understanding the Bible, the promises, and we're the children of that promise. Okay. He was in the wilderness, man, just lost, going for what we know. Okay. But the Lord pulled a remnant. All right. And he's still, extrapolating his remnant from the wilderness. Okay. Getting ready to come into the promises of our forefathers, and we're going to come into them fully. We're going to get new bodies. Okay. With this, our people have had the promised land before, but they never had the new bodies. See, now we're going to get these new bodies, going to the new covenant based on better promises. Okay. And that better promise is us being changed, so we can uphold our end of the covenant forever. You see, but there's a generation of our people that that's not even a thought to them. They're caught up in the now. And one thing about the generation of the wilderness, they just went in circle after circle after circle. And you see with our people, they would just continue to go in circle after circle after circle. The Lord never intervened. And the Lord never rose up the prophets, to extrapolate, and teach to the elect. Okay. Was set up, the deliverance at the end of this time. You see, our people will just go in circles and circles and get worse and worse. Okay, so let's get some precepts, man. I got a quick little video I want to play now. Let's go here to the book of Jeremiah. All right, chapter 2. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, and verse 21. It said, "Yet I planted thee a noble vine, holy and right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?" Okay, so the scriptures say that the Lord planted us a noble vine. Noble means choice. It goes into the best choice. Okay, so the Lord planted us as a noble, elite people in righteousness. Okay, so it says, "How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto thee?" Well, the way of the heathen. The way of the heathen degenerated us as a people. All right, and as our people remain in the way of the heathen, they just continue to become more degenerated. That's why you go to the book of Psalms. Okay, let's get the book of Psalms, chapter 106. I'm getting the NLT. All right, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 106, and start at 34. Okay, Psalms 106 and 34 says, "Israel failed to destroy the nations in the land that the Lord had commanded them. Instead, they mingled among the pagans and adopted their evil customs." You see? Because you look into the culture of our people, that's the culture of the heathen. Okay? You look at today, all right, these Greek fraternities and sororities, that's the custom of the heathen. That's pagan custom. Christianity is full of pagan customs. Western culture full of pagan customs, man. Okay? And our people, they, all right, and especially since in this time you have segregation, all right, then you had the integration. When our people was integrated amongst Esau, okay, what did they do? They began to take on Edomite ways. Because Esau was the worst of all the heathen. Okay? He's a super Canaanite. Now, when you go into it, says instead they mingled among the pagans and adopted their evil customs. They worshiped their idols, which led to their downfall. Okay? And the reason why people, are in this circle of failure. Okay? Because every culture that our people, try to make out of idolatry, man, it's a failed culture. And black culture is a culture of idolatry, man. Okay? And it gets worse and worse. It gets more lewd. It gets more, all right, disgusting, more violent. Okay, more done, you know. It says they worship their idols, which led to their downfall. They even sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. And today, what do our people do? Okay, they sacrifice their sons and daughters to the lifestyle of degeneracy, man. You know, whether it's a street nigga, an alphabet, a young hoe. Okay, the sons and daughters are sacrificed to demons. Okay, because what you know, most of the parents, okay, they push the enchantments on the children now. Okay, so they shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, by sacrificing them to the idols of Canaan. They polluted the land with murder. Is not this the culture of Jake? Okay, it's not, you know, Jake dwellings polluted with murder. You see? And their children are born into it, born into the fire, you know, and then are enchanted with these demons and go out and be worse than the generation, all right, before. Okay, so they defile themselves by their evil deeds, and their love of idols was adultery in the Lord's sight. Yeah, Jake loved their idols, man. Jake loved his culture, you know, because right now it's mainly self-worship, the worship of money, the worship of partying, which that goes back, all right, to these Greco-Roman gods of Dionysus and Bacchus, which we'll get into that. Okay, and this is why the Lord, especially dealing with those Canaanites. Okay, let's get on Deuteronomy 8. Let's see. It might be 7. Let's see. All right. This is Deuteronomy 7:1. It says, when the Lord your power brings you into the land you are about to enter and occupy, he will clear away many nations ahead of you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and Jebusites. These 7 nations are greater and more numerous than you. When the Lord your power hands these nations over to you and you conquer them, you must completely destroy them. Make no treaties with them and show them no mercy. You must not intermarry with them. Do not let your daughters and sons marry their sons and daughters, for they will lead your children away from me to worship other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will burn against you, and he will quickly destroy you. And these are the nations whom the Lord wanted us completely eradicate out of the land, these Canaanites, man. Okay? It said, this is what you must do. You must break down their pagan altars and shatter their sacred pillars, cut down their Asherah poles, and burn their idols. For you are a holy people who belong to the Lord your power. Of all the people on the earth, the Lord has chosen you to be his own special treasure. Okay, and this is what the elect has awakened to in these last days, is that we was chosen, you know, to be the Lord's special people, and that comes with a responsibility. Okay, and holiness is about conduct. You know, it's our conduct that separates us from these other nations. You know, the Lord gave us a superior way. Okay, the heathen, you know, especially, you know, dealing with these Canaanites, they live like animals, man. Okay, and in these last days, as our people, you know, are enchanted, all right, about, you know, witchcraft of Esau today. Okay, our people, they move and operate like animals, man. You know, just on their low nature. Okay, and when you go here, I want to play this video real quick. So let's see. Let's get this first. So you go to the ancient, Canaanites. All right. I just looked at the sexual sins of the ancient Canaanites. It said ancient Canaanite society is often associated with a variety of sexual sins, primarily recorded and condemned in the Hebrew Bible, particularly in Leviticus 18 and Deuteronomy 23. These practices were viewed as abhorrent, right, which means to avoid, by the Israelites because they were often tied to the worship of Canaanite deities. Primary sexual sins attributed to the ancient Canaanites included temple prostitution. Widespread religious practice involved male and female prostitutes, man. And this is all the club is. The club is nothing but like a pagan temple. Okay, and men and women are just male and female prostitutes. Okay, often associated with the gods of Baal and Asherah, engaging in immoral sexual acts, engaging in immoral sexual acts was believed to entice the gods to join together, thereby ensuring agricultural fertility and good harvest. Okay. So they were doing these things, in hopes for, good harvest, so they would be nasty as a way to appease their gods. Okay. It says the Bible text frequently accuses the Canaanites of various forms of incestuous relationships. Okay. Having incest, brothers and sisters and, aunties and uncles. And okay. You see, it said which was strictly forbidden under later Israelite law. It says homosexual acts are among the specific sexual perversions condemned in Leviticus, with texts arguing these practices defied the male-female model of holy union. All right, it was into bestiality, sexual relationship with animals are so listed among the abominable practices culturally accepted by the Canaanites. Adultery, unfaithfulness within marriage, all right, was just big among Jake. Within marriage was reportedly common and often exacerbated, so like you by the ritual orgies that took place during high holy days for deities like Baal. Now, it says according to the biblical accounts, it was widespread, systematic nature of these sexual depravities compounded by practices like child sacrifice that ultimately led the judgment of the Canaanite people and the mandate for their displacement from the land. And those same practices got us out the land, man. Okay, because Jake doubled back and started to incorporate these same things into their day-to-day. Okay, and Jake was even doing some of these things in the temple, raising up idols around the temple. Okay, prostitution, you see, in the temple. Okay, of the Most High, man. Which got us put out the land. And that same generation is back. And that generation of wickedness, it comes back and they're drawn to the same thing every time. Okay, so when you go from there, let's play this quick video that I want to expound. All right, so let's go here. So Jake has started this thing called run clubs. So I guess you got a group of Jake, the nigga woman, supposed to get together and run. All right. Now they're coming out and saying what these run clubs was supposed to be a thing of health or community of health or whatever. All right. But Now they saying these run clubs, okay, but now just a big orgy. They done turned it to an orgy, man. Okay, so let's play this real quick.
Not y'all being mad because y'all found out they be and mingling and drinking at these little run clubs. Why the y'all think they started a run club? To run? I could run by myself. I wouldn't have came unless we was running. Like, ain't nothing wrong with the running and the mingling and jingling after. Y'all have got to start thinking, man. Like, use the thinking cap, y'all. Y'all too old. Shout out to run clubs.
People have started to call run clubs sex cults, and I fear they're not wrong. Okay? Context. I started a run club 2.5 years ago, right? At first, when we started, we would do normal stuff. We would meet up in a park. We would warm up. We would go run 3 miles or 1.5, or you could walk because we welcome walkers too. And then we would come back. We would do our cool down, mix, mingle, socialize, and then we'd go home. Somewhere along the way, I don't know when this happened, whenever we would get back from our cool down, we would just get in the huddle and everybody would just start taking their clothes off, and then it would just it just escalate from there. I don't know when that happened, but I feel like the reason that people are calling a run club a sex club or a sex code is because they want to come, literally and figuratively. But they feel like they're not in shape enough to be at the run club where we all be running and then we do whatever afterwards. But I promise you, we welcome anybody. Like, you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid of if you're a walker or if your mile time is slow. Like, you could run a 15-minute mile. Your clothes don't come off the same when we're done running. So I just feel like stop being afraid of the run club, sex code, whatever, and just embrace it and just.
There you go. You know, who is the ambassador? Okay, who's on the front line of the ambassador? Okay, so these so-called run clubs, all right, where they're supposed to be, just be running, mingling, whatever. Okay, under the banner of health. Okay, and look what it's turned into. And this is just what our people do. Anytime you have, Jake and Eve, together collectively, it turns into, an orgy. Okay, look at these shops, these plants where you have men and women working side by side. What are they? They just, like it's certain plants. Oh, Jake be on TikTok and be like, look, if your woman work at this plant, she ain't faithful, dog. If your woman work at this plant, she ain't, because it's just a big, everybody's screwing everybody. Everybody just hunching on everybody. And that's what it always turned into with Jake. All right, the church. Okay, everybody freaking everybody at the church. Okay, college. Everybody freaking everybody at the college. All right, like these plant jobs. Everybody freaking everybody at these plant jobs. Okay, the gym. You see, now you have a run club. You see, wherever Jake and Eve are at, man, and they're co-mingling. Okay, it's gonna turn into, all right, a sex party, man. It's gonna turn into a freak off. Okay, what did Jake do? Black Beach. Okay, a freak off. Okay, the freak nigga. You used to have the freak nigga, a freak off. Okay, this is what our people always devolve into. All right, and with these run clubs, what are you gonna have now? All right, they're freaking off. They pretty much, she said, everybody taking off their clothes, so it just, go for it all. Okay, so they pretty much, it's gonna be diseases passed around. It's gonna be some more. All right, it's gonna, you're gonna have the creation of bearded baby mamas. Okay, you see, and eventually, what you're gonna have some Jake come up there. He just gonna be there to sell weed. You're gonna have niggas that come up there that have nothing to do with running. Okay, and eventually it's gonna be a shootout. So it's gonna be just like the neighborhood. Okay, in neighborhoods where Jake stay, everybody freaking off with everybody. These projects, these apartments, Okay, these neighborhoods with JK, everybody is freaking off with everybody. Okay, it's the same thing. It's the same result. Okay, when you get our people together, and this is the generation of the wilderness, man. Okay, so like I said, don't be surprised because eventually, okay, they freaking off now. Somebody gonna call the weed man up there. The weed man gonna be like, damn, he gonna go tell the niggas in the neighborhood. And the niggas gonna start coming when they finish running. They gonna be there waiting. They gonna want to freak off, and then it's gonna be tension. One nigga gonna look at each other wrong and shootout. Okay, you can tell where this is finna go. All right. So now let's go from there and let's get this real quick in the book of let's get this in let's get this in the book of let's go to Exodus 32. So as Moses went up to the mount to get the law, and I said, this that generation. All right, this is Deuteronomy 32:1. It says Exodus 32:1. It says, and when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, up, make us gods, all right, which shall go before us, for as this Moses, the man that brought us out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people break off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, these be thy gods, all right, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. So immediately they took the glory of the Most High and gave it to a golden calf, man. That's another thing. This is a very unappreciative society, man. This is a very unappreciative generation, man. Extremely unappreciative generation of Israelites, man. It says, and when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is the feast of the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So let's get this word, rose up to play. It's this generation of no patience. Okay, and they were just slaves to their lust, man. Slaves to their lower nature. You see? So you get this word play. I'm going to get into it. All right. Which is a Tazahak. All right. Tazahak. Tazakak. All right. Tazakak. All right. Which is to laugh, to mock. All right. Let me see. Go into it. Let's go here. Blue will be switching. So let's go here real quick. So when you go to the Google, all right, what was going on? All right, so I asked Google, what does it mean when the Israelite rose to play? It says in the Bible, when the Israelite rose to play in the wilderness, it refers to the notorious episode of idolatry and immoral revelry surrounding the worship of the golden calf. This event occurred when Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 commandments. So Moses receiving the commandments, and these niggas are already breaking all of them, which he received more than 10 commandments. All right. You see? he received 613. Okay, but as he was receiving the commandments, these niggas at the bottom of the mountain breaking every commandment, man. Okay, it said the Hebrew word for play, all right, is tazakak, all right. It implies wild, unrestrained partying, singing, and dancing, heavily influenced by pagan worship of Egypt. So they were doing what they were seeing in Egypt. It said immorality and orgies. Historically and theologically, many scholars understand play in the context to be a euphemism for sexual immorality and drunken orgies in other parts of the Old Testament. The same root word is used to describe erotic behavior. Okay, so this is what Jake was on in the wilderness, man. Okay, and that same generation comes back and is drawn to the same thing, and they never come out of it, man. You know, this is their life. You see, the wilderness, man. That wilderness mindset, that wilderness generation is back, and they're doing, okay, what they were doing in the wilderness, man. You know, which is to operate in their low nature. Okay, you go on social media, all the nigga woman is talking about is sex. She going to detail each sexual encounter that she got. That's all the majority of the nigga woman is talking about. You like, God damn. You see? Slaves to their lower nature, man. All right? And even when you go here, all right, during the time of the Greeks, they're during the time of Egypt, but during the time of the Greeks, Jake, come back on the same tip, the same generation, man. You know, and that generation is here to be judged now, man. And I say we was in the midst of that. You see, and the Lord saw it fit, all right, to bring us out. You know, let's go here. So let's get this in the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, starting verse 1. So this is the book of Maccabees, chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High. And this is going to Antiochus Epiphanes, okay? Was this demon? He forcefully Hellenized Jake. You know, he Hellenized Jake through the sword. You see, but you had our forefathers, they rose up and fight, and some, they would rather die, okay, than live out the heathen. They stuck to the ways, okay, of the forefather, the elect, man. Those that died to keep the law back then, there's no doubt they are the elect. They would rather die than to live out the heathen, man. And see, this is the spirit that the elect is, being, this is what the Lord is building up in us, man. To rather die than to go back to live like the heathen, to take the sea hill. Okay, you had our forefathers, even some of our foremothers, man. They would rather die than eat pork. Okay, so how much more us when it comes to this sea hill, not to take this sea hill, man. Okay, it said, not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius. And it said, it says, in that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire, all right, that dwelt in the place, man, that Jupiter, and all these, we go into the Jesus Christ character, he's linked, to a lot of these pagan deities, man, because they were defender of strangers. You see, and they try to make it seem as if, who they call Jesus Christ is what he comes for all. Okay, that doctrine, man. You see, he said the coming The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. You see, this is what the heathen was on. Okay, and Jake was seeing this and was like, wow, Jake turned out. And we all, because in this society, we see so much, like, we've seen so much, we've been so over sexualized. We was exposed to so much so early, so often. It's in the music, the music videos, and now, regular TV is light corn. You watch a regular series on, the TV is a light corn movie. Videos is like light corn now. What they rap about is verbal corn. Like, damn. You see? Well, this Greco-Roman society exposes, and it's intentional like that. Esau got it intentionally where at a young age you're exposed to so much. And then if you live in, the Jake neighborhoods, hey, you see, it's like living in the wilderness, man. It's like living in the forest, man. Animals. You see? And it says it had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. The altars also was filled with profane things, which the law forbade. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself to be a Jew. Okay, and that's why you get to the New Testament. All right, you have this going on for generations. Our people, people that that bow down. But you will have generations later, because no matter what, the elect gonna be the elect, no matter what environment they come in, and the 2/3 gonna be the 2/3, no matter what environment they come in. Okay, so you had the elect being born of, our people that sold out to the Greeks during the time of the New Testament, the Gospels, okay, and the epistles, okay, the church, the time of the apostles, okay. Apostle Paul was teaching to the descendants, okay, of our people that were Hellenized. You see, but the elect gonna be the elect no matter what circumstance they're born in. You see, and the Lord, the elect gonna hear His word and come out of it. You see, verse 7 says, "In the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast, all right, it says, and when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy, man. Okay, and we're gonna get there dealing with Bacchus, man. Okay, so this is what Jake was wilding during this time. Jake was all into it. You see, but this is right up the generation of the wilderness. This is right up their alley. This is what they're drawing to. By saying you had, our forefathers, some of our foremothers, they went to war. That's why they had the Maccabean revolt. And some just chose death, man. Okay, which that's the stance of the elect in every generation. Okay, just as you have, the wilderness generation, they're gonna come and do what they do. Okay, and we was born in the midst of this wilderness generation, but the Lord, just like in the time of the apostles when they was teaching His word amongst our people that was Hellenized, all right, you had a repentance, you had a remnant, that came out of this, man. Okay, it said, moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices, man. And remember, this was under the penalty. Okay, verse 9 it says, and whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. Okay, so it was under the threat of imminent death to conform, all right, and be Hellenized. Okay, and a lot of our people did, just like this MOTB. It's going to be mandated. It's going to get to a point where it's going to be mandated by death. Okay, and this is why we, as our forefathers, okay, some of our foremothers, like, we would rather take the death, man, than to bow down, all right, to degeneracy, man. You see? So let's go from there real quick, and let's get So it's asked the word orgies are part of Greek and Roman culture. It says orgies were part of the ancient Greek and Roman customs, originated from the Greek word orgia, which originally referred to secret, all right, ecstatic religious rites and mystery cults. And there's a lot of things that go on in secrecy that, because these are the things that people are just coming out and saying, yeah, we're part of this, we do this. They're just openly saying it, all right, claiming, what they do, and it's, like I say, it's become extremely lewd just without in the open, okay? But then you go into what a lot is going on secretly, man, especially, like I say, these Greek fraternities, sororities, okay? There's a lot that go on behind the scenes, okay? A lot of initiations, and there's a lot going on. All right, but this goes back to Greco-Roman culture. It says the primary goal was to achieve spiritual transcendence and alter states of consciousness, which sometimes involves sexual rites, alcohol, and ritual frenzy. And another thing, going back to these fraternities and sororities, all right, well, this will put you in certain networks, to where you can get better jobs and, get little perks and benefits in society. All right, get into, masonry, being masons, and, Eastern Stars. And there's a lot that go into that behind the scenes. Okay, now you keep reading. It says the gods associated with these rites. It says Dionysus, known as Bacchus in Rome. So Dionysus is just the Greek way of saying Bacchus. Okay, Bacchus, the Greek way, the Roman way of saying Dionysus, same deity. It said the god of wine, ritual madness, and ecstasy. His festivals, the Greek Dionysia and the Roman, all right, Bacchanalia, were the most famous for wild, unrestrained relationships. Okay, and this is what you see: unrestrained, all right, celebrations and relationships, man. Okay, and that's the culture amongst the nightlife. Niggas, you got some cities. I know when I used to DJ, man, I used to DJ 4 or 5 nights out the week sometimes every day of the week. And I would see the same people. All right, in different spots I was at. Like, God damn, they was more committed, than me. A lot of them would be there waiting on me. I'm like, God damn, nigga, but this is just their life, man. Like I say, we was in the mix of that. A lot of us, some more than others, man, but a lot of us was in the mix of this. Okay, just that unrestrained lust. Okay, to basically do as thou wilt. You see, so that culture is alive and well today in Greco-Rome. You see, the generation of the wilderness, they are drawn to that. They're drawn, all right, to that. Let's see. Let's go here. They're drawn to that low nature, man. All right, and one thing that Babylon does, it accommodates Okay, the low nature. But let's go here. Okay, cover these. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. He said, "But ye are a chosen generation, the elect, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, separate, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." Okay, and we've been called out of that darkness, okay, of mingling, with the generation of the wilderness, caught up into, all right, the customs of the heathen, okay, the enchantments of the heathen, and we've been brought into a marvelous light, man, a new way, okay, the true way. We're getting order, structure, learning being, moderate, be conservative. You see, we will understand the true intent because, marriage is a heavy thing, man. The order of marriage and sex, that should be honored. You see, and we're starting to understand these things. We understand the purpose of things, family. You see, just, randomly out here, just, and that's why these are the things that we begin to grow out of. Okay, when we was a child, we thought as a child, spake as a child. You see, but as we, become more mature in this thing, we put out childish things, man, and that low nature living is a child's way to live, man. Irresponsible. Okay. You see, and it's a fight, because we're in the flesh. You see, so there's a constant fight, but we continue to, with time, we begin to dominate the flesh, man. Because now we're learning, true order, true structure, true holiness, man. Okay, and we're gonna, because there's nothing wrong with pleasure, but there's an order to it. There's a purpose to it. See, the heathen, they throw away the order and the purpose to it, and they just go straight for pleasure, however you can get your rocks off. Okay, orgies, threesomes, foursomes, man on man, woman on woman, adultery, it don't matter. You see, but what we're learning, there's an order to these things. All right, it says, verse 10, it says, "Which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of the Most High." Yeah, because when we was out there, we was a no people. Because coming back to an Israelite is coming back to a standard, an expectation, man. It's just not a title, to boast in. I'm an Israelite. These are chosen people. No, there's an expectation, there's a conduct, there's a standard that we come back to. Okay, as we know who we are. When we was in the world, we just a no people, just winging it. Okay, it says, "Which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Dearly beloved, I beseech you, as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust, which war against the soul." You see that? That war against the soul. All right, so we're strangers and pilgrims. This world is not for us. This age is not for us, man. We didn't come here to partake and indulge in this world. We came here to separate from this world, man, in the expectation of a deliverance. Okay? But the thing that draws us to this world is what that fleshly lust, man. That's why, we have to abstain from fleshly lust, man, which war against the soul. That's why people are so empty, so dark. Okay? That they live a culture, okay, in the that goes against their soul, their spirit. You see, it's a feel good, but it destroys the spirit, and that's why people are becoming cold and dark, and that's why that's why life is not valued amongst our people, man. Because they operate on such a low frequency, man. Colossians 1:12 says, "Giving thanks unto the Father, which had made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light." Okay? So giving thanks unto Yahweh Bashim al-Shah, which has made us meet or worthy. He's making us worthy to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, man. Okay, we have an inheritance. Okay, and within that inheritance, man, there's order. You see, we're going back to order, man, not this random, no, not this one big freaknik. Okay, nigga culture, just one big freaknik, celebrity culture. Everybody screwing everybody. NBA, you know, the players talking about how the players was popping the coach wife, and you know, everybody popping each other wife, and certain, you know, this is just one big freaknik. Nigga culture is just one big freaknik, man. Children are just born, you know, just here, niggas just here. Just being born randomly. You know, with no order, no nothing, just nigga just here. Okay? It's like, you know, it's even worse than animals, because animals have some type of structure and order. You know, it's worse than animals. All right, when you go into nigga culture, man. It's in verse 13, said, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear son, man. So the power of darkness. You know, we've been delivered from that power, you know, which draws our people in based on their lower nature. You know, their low nature keeps, you know, that generation of the wilderness and their darkness, man. You know, because they're governed by that lower nature. It says they have translated us into the kingdom of his dear son, you know, and it's and to be translated into that kingdom where it begins with repentance, okay, through faith, okay, and through their repentance we grow into righteousness, man, and we're being translated into the kingdom of Yahweh Shah through righteousness, man. But that's the point. You know, I leave it there, Lord will. You know, you brothers, all right, and if you so edified once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of the GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutation, hopefully, shalom.